And in a continued effort aimed at managing and, of course, regulating the country's foreign exchange market, the Central Bank of Nigeria has directed all commercial banks to publish on their website the names and bank verification numbers of customers who fraudulently obtain foreign exchange from banks. This move by the Apex Bank was prompted by reports of sharp practices by some unscrupulous customers to circumvent the new CBN policy on the sale of forex and overseas personal and business travel. According to the bank's Director of Banking Supervision Department, Mr. Haruna Mustafa, foreign exchange should be strictly meant for bank customers on genuine trips overseas, maintaining that those using travel documents to obtain foreign exchange and thereafter cancel their purported trips to divert the forex for other use would be blacklisted. Adding that the central bank has opened a black book for customers obtaining forex under false pretense. It will be recalled that in July, Apex Bank ended sales of forex to Burundi operators, saying the parallel market had become a conduit for illicit forex flows and graft, directing all forex transactions to the commercial banks. He's joining me live via Skype from Abuja to look at this. He is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. He's Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu. Dr. Ekechukwu, good afternoon and thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you today.
Yeah, good afternoon, Tolu. It's my pleasure.
Yes, one way or the other, my discussion with Professor Waleke moves into our discussion because he also talked about this move by the CBN. First, let's do a little bit of assessment. It might be too early to judge, but what would you say is the direct reaction to this new policy, not selling to BDCs and banks handling the sales of forex?
First of all, we need to know why CBN had to ban the sale of forex to BDCs. A whole lot of accusations were going on, accusations of round-tripping, the accusations of hoarding these currencies, making it scarce in the market, and then forcing the prices to be up. Accusations of trying to dollarize the economy, whereby people were beginning to save their monies in foreign currencies instead of leaving them in naira because they were no longer sure of the inflation rate that was rising every day. So having done all those, it became very obvious that the demand for FX was just continuing to be high and high and high. And again, knowing that at the time this decision was taken, we had over 5,500 BDCs. And the first question anybody will ask would be, how do we have such number of BDCs registered by the same institution, CBN? How do we allow such a number to get to that number? Because it is just not easy regulating up to 100 or 200 or 1,000, 5,500 BDCs at a time. You don't forget that they are always regulated and they are also supposed to be rendering their returns, monthly returns and quarterly returns and annual returns. So to have such returns come from 5,500. And of course, even the CBN said every month they saw as many as 500 requests coming from new entrants into the BDC market. And so it became necessary for CBN to curtail that growth in the first place. Even though it was late at the time they did it, because they should have indeed curtailed the number of people to be registered as BDC. Just like we have such control within the banking, with the deposit money banks. Because at the time I saw that virtually everybody, especially people in government, all of them had BDCs. And so it became difficult for CBN to control. But having said this, it was also necessary that the decision they took was taken, because you see that it wasn't the first time CBN was insisting that only banks sell the foreign currencies to people. But the issue is some of the problems we encountered in the past. In the 90s, in the early part of 2000, banks were selling these things to the users. But of course, the same problems that we encountered then, the same problems that we are obviously experiencing today. Meaning that it's either we haven't studied all the problems, or what led to the problems, or how the problems are resolved, or we just decided to ban the sale to BDCs and decided to give it to the banks. You know, various rules actually guiding this. Of course, one of them saying that any user who does not fully utilize the amount requested from the commercial bank should return same to the banks. Of course, you know such a thing is not possible. Anybody who collects such money will never return it back to the banks, because it's not necessary to really put a policy or a rule that cannot be enforced. You know, because that one is not possible to be enforced. There are issues of also shortlisting the customers of banks that are actually defaulting in this. Presupposes that commercial banks or commercial bank staff are not part of the whole defaults or arrangements. Because we know in the past what used to happen was that BDC people or customers will come with multiple passports and multiple tickets. And of course, they will submit them to banks, and bank officials will know that it's only one customer that is submitting up to 30 such documents. And then, of course, they will clear them and make sure they use them as their own return to CBN. So there is no default that the bank officers are not aware of and are not part of. So to now ask the banks to shortlist those customers that are defaulting with their BVN is also saying that the bank staff should report themselves, because they are accomplices in this case. So just to say so the least, this is just actually what is happening. So I think we have to look at other ways of enforcing this so that it will be easier for CBN to be able to regulate this whole thing. But to publish the names of defaulting customers is almost not going to be solving the entire problem, so to say.
You don't think it? But the issue of monitoring comes up in all that you have said. And some argue that the central bank will better monitor the banks, I mean the commercial banks, that monitoring the more than 5,000 BDCs that we've had in operations before now. That's an argument on one side. I don't know what that means to you, what that means. And on the other side, I'd like to also ask, what more can the central bank do? We've seen a lot of policies and initiatives aimed at attracting FX one way or the other. Naira for dollar. A lot of things ongoing that some people don't even know, and they tell you, you have some money to get because of this. What more can be done to address this ugly trend?
Yeah, some of the things that can be done are still outside of the control of central bank. One of it is the fact that the size of exports we have to do must continue to rise. The percentage of exports that we're doing in the country must rise. And these exports must come from various sectors, the manufacturing, the agricultural, and services, actually. When we start exporting far, far more, or even come close to the size of our imports, in other words, if we narrow the gap between our trade imbalance, in fact, in our trade imbalance, it will be easier for us to start generating a lot of foreign currency to be able to fund the foreign reserve. One other one that is not within the control of CBN is the price of oil, which Dr. Uche talked about. When the oil price continues to rise, then we're going to be having more, and then of course output increases, we'll have more. But when that is not happening, you see that we're not going to be having enough as far as today is concerned. But just like already stated, until we start refining our petroleum products locally, we won't obviously be able to have enough of this foreign currency to take care of our needs. So right now, what is only happening is the fact that the demand for FX is still larger than the supply of FX, and until until the demand reduces and supply increases, we're also going to be experiencing, we're going to continue experiencing the high FX rates that we're having today. So these are the things, but there is hope. The fact that oil price is remaining where it is, and of course we know that there was a time oil price was as low as $30-something per barrel, and from that time to today we have not experienced any improvement in the exchange rate. And so anybody will wonder, how come even as the price of oil today is at 70 something dollar per barrel, we still have not been able to have enough FX to be able to reduce the supply, or well, increase the supply to reduce the price. The reason is the fact that a lot of people decided to invest their monies in foreign currency. A lot of people closed in on their naira deposits and decided to invest in foreign currency. And of course, we know that when that happens, and of course, we also know that a lot of payments that happen in this country, especially political payments and things like that, happen in foreign currency because of how bulky the naira may be when they use it to make such payments. So these are some of the things that actually affect the fact that even when the supply of foreign FX is increasing, we still don't see the impact in the exchange rate. Those are some of the reasons, so until we get some of these things and get the supply end increasing, we may not have the exchange rate dropping as we expect.
I'm worried. Why do Nigerians, not only Nigerians, why do we have to involve in manipulation? Why do we have to, you're not traveling? What do you need the FX for? Why are we doing this? I tend to wonder, is it just for selfish reasons, or this is something that might have been happening even before now? Like you said, some invest all of their nairas just to get dollars and just trade on that, and that's what they live on. How long can we continue like this as a country? Not forgetting that we depend so much on imports.
Yes. Don't forget that this is the primary job of primary employment of many people. The business of foreign exchange is the business for a good number of Nigerians, and so having anything that will reduce the revenue they generate from that business will obviously affect them. So what they will do is just to find ways of circumventing whatever policy that comes. Find a way around it and out of it in order for them to still benefit from the same business, because that's the only business they know. There are people who don't know any other business apart from FX business. So once any policy tries to kill their business, they will just find a way around it and make sure they still succeed and remain in business. So that's actually what is happening. They may not be criminally minded. They may only be finding opportunities and solutions out of the problems they find themselves right now in the only business they know about. And these are people who cannot do another business but this same kind of business. So all they're trying to do is just the survival instinct that is in every person in the business they do.
So we talk many times about the disparity that's between the the bank rates and of course at the parallel market, and many times we try to talk about addressing this disparity. It's a two-in-one question. We also have another argument, or some have this position that for the central bank to be giving different rates. There's rates for importation, there's rates for hard, there's rates for this. We have different kind of rates. So this is also something that affects this disparity. With all of these moves, do you see us closing this gap anytime soon, or is this just a short-term move just to address the situation for some time? Let's see how it goes, and maybe we initiate another policy.
Yeah, the issue of closing gap, or the gap between official rates and the prime market rate, has only one solution. Every time people talk about it, I just wonder what else that can close it apart from that solution, which is just making sure that the supply is just almost as much as the demand, or more than the demand. That is the only thing that can close that gap. So it is going to be such that when 20 people have FX to sell, they are selling at the same price. In fact, if you increase their own rates, nobody will buy from you, because the entire place is awash with FX. So when the supply is matching the demand, that is the only time that particular rate will be reduced. So, in other words, even if CBN decides to use the parallel rate today as their own rate, what will happen is that the parallel rate will shift a little again, because there isn't enough supply of the FX to meet that demand. In other words, there will still be a gap again created by the supply gap that is there. So it is a system, even if CBN decides to give different rates for different people, it is still not going to close the gap between the two rates. All that can close that gap is the supply of this. And of course, we know that this supply is not that which is always there for us. A lot of things will have to happen before that supply can start increasing. One of it, we already said. The next one, we already said, which is the fact that the major user of our FX is the oil we buy from outside, we import from outside this country. Once that stops, a whole chunk of our FX will be retained within us, and then we have to get into a lot of policies that will encourage exports and a lot of policies that will discourage imports. When we do that, and then we grow our local capacity of manufacturing, the real sector has to be boosted in such a way that everybody will just be manufacturing everywhere. We have different little manufacturing outfits here and there. Once that happens, you see that a lot of people will be looking for markets outside the country, and of course, outside this country is a lot of markets. So we're going to be exporting our products to other countries. If we don't do that, there's still going to be serious pressure on the FX, and that is actually what is affecting our exchange rate.
Yes, finally, staying with manufacturing and small businesses, in your thoughts, what will be happening to them? What are they feeling? I'm sure you'll be getting feelers. You were the former DJ of Abuja Chamber of Commerce, and you know the business people that need quick forex for manufacturing to bring in their produce and all that will make them. We're getting close to the ember months. September, we're already in September, October, November, and December. So a lot of business people want to produce more. What are the feelers? What feelers are you getting at the moment?
Yeah, the feelers is that MSMEs all have access to funds if they want to import goods and services. Don't forget that when you have goods to import, you have to approach your bank and fill the normal Form M. As far as your item is not part of the prohibited items valid for FX, you fill your Form M and your bank will seek for FX through the CBN and bid for you, and of course you get it and you import your items. That is not cumbersome at all. So all importers should actually approach their banks, and they will fill certain Form Ms and fill certain documentations. Once that is done, they will have access to such importation. And of course, you know that also there is MSME FS window, which is there and available for MSMEs to source for funds. Those funds are available for importation. But the one we're talking about, having the one handled now by commercial banks, where you have to, is the retail end, where you just walk across and you don't need funds above 5. Yeah. So that is what it is.
Hello, Dr. Ekechukwu.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you've been able to make your point. Thank you so very much. I appreciate this. I'm just looking at it like if we are to look at it maybe in another few months, we need to still assess this and see what it's looking like. And these differentials, one way or the other, I think that gap is what worries me a lot. I hope something positive will finally come out of all of these policies instituted by the CBN. What do you think?
Yeah, we hope so too. And one of the things I want to even suggest for CBN to implement, especially for the retail end of FX transactions, instead of asking people to go to the banks and buy $5,000, and for payments of school fees, payments of hospital bills, and things like that, if we load our MasterCard, our Visa card with those values, you'll see that the malpractices CBN is afraid of will reduce. Because people buy from CBN and they go and sell in the private market, that means they have access to cash they're selling. But if you load, anybody who wants to travel, get your ticket, and then we load your card with the amount you want, you pay for it, and you travel with that card. If that system is utilized, you see that the malpractices that we're seeing within this window will be reduced. And so this is just one idea which they're getting for free from me.
And I'm sure they are listening to you. Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu there is the Managing Director, CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you very much. It's always good to talk to you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.